Hello, everybody. We are back after a tremendous weekend of football. A little bit later in the week, but yeah, had a headache yesterday, so we had to reschedule yesterday's pod. Caleb, there's some big news around Liverpool circulating. So, how are you? How are you reacting to the news? Do you care? Let's get your take
I
on
was
it.
I was actually, and you wouldn't really attribute this to like hearing news about owners wanting to sell a club, but I was actually a little bit firstly in shock, and then maybe a little bit saddened actually because and this is one thing I got to stop doing because a couple of weeks ago I talked about how the last thing we had going for us this season was the Anfield factor, and then we go and promptly lose 2-1 to Leeds at home. And then I bring up how ridiculous I thought it was that there were even murmurs of FSG out in this time, and how
Or
good a
Klopp
job that
out.
I think that. Yeah, we talked
Yeah.
about Klopp out, but I also in that little section I brought up that I wouldn't talk about Klopp out, but I would talk about FSG out, and I talked about how good a job I think they've done, and then obviously a week later they go and put the club up for sale. So um, it's a little bit of an uneasy time, I guess, for me as a Liverpool supporter. I don't know how all the other Liverpool supporters feel about FSG. I guess if you want to look at maybe their commitment to the club, I think it's a good thing that they've invested all this money into redeveloping that Anfield Road stand. And then while they've done that, they've actually put the club up for sale. It's not like they've left things untouched or things that need to be done. They've redeveloped the training center. They got Jurgen Klopp in. They got the stands and the stadium either rebuilt or in the process of being rebuilt. And I guess they've just decided this is a good time to sell because at the end of the day, they're business people who want to make money, which is fine. Maybe they just lost the love for it. I don't know what the reasons for selling. I'll be more interested to see what those reasons for selling are in the coming days or weeks when we hear more and more about the story. But yeah, my initial reaction was just shock and a tinge of sadness, and now uncertainty about where the future goes, what kind of owners we get in, because I think that it's no doubt that these guys have been a main catalyst, maybe the main catalyst in propelling us to the levels that we've reached. Whether you put it to Klopp, obviously Klopp is the main piece that they got in, but they still had to get the piece in. And Anfield now going to become a 60,000 seater stadium really puts us on par with all those other big clubs, especially in England. So yeah, I think they've been a huge, and obviously the training ground. The training ground matters mightily, of course, to players as well, because that's where they spend the majority of their working lives when they're at a club. So yeah, really they've done a really good job. I don't know. I don't think that can be denied if you look at where we started and where we are now. So yeah, now just interested to see what the future holds in terms of the ownership of Liverpool, and let's hope it can. Even if it's three quarters as good as what we've had, that would still be pretty good when you look at the strife that other clubs have been in. I look at Chelsea in particular. We'll probably talk about them a bit later on because they had a big game on the weekend, but yeah, we're definitely not hoping for that kind of American ownership, which Gary Neville would be pleased to hear me say. But yeah, they've done a fantastic job, and I guess it's going to be sad to see them go. And let's hope we get someone, yeah, like I say, three quarters or up as good as what they've done, because yeah, I think they've done a fantastic job.
Well, would I've seen some Liverpool supporters. Well, the question is, I'll ask the question first. Would you be fine with, like, there's talk of like the state ownership? That's what they call it. So basically, like a Saudi run, like Newcastle or Etihad would be. It's not Dubai. It's United Arab Emirates. But I think there's another group in there. And then Qatar, is Qatar PSG, or is that
Pretty
or
sure.
is
Yeah, pretty
Dubai
sure.
PSG and then Etihad is Man City?
My instinct is that Qatar is PSG.
Yeah, I think that's right because they're sponsored by Qatar Airways, aren't they? So, but like I've seen some Liverpool fans be, I guess, sort of voice their concerns about that because Liverpool is a sort of what is it? It's what's the political leaning? Socialist sort of city where like they rely on
You'd say it'd be
themselves. And
left leaning. You just
yeah,
have to look at
so
the colours we wear.
yeah, so like in with that though, like would you be fine with this like sort of new ownership, a potential new ownership, or would you be more, I don't know, sort of what Fenway have been, where like they've sort of they haven't really invested their own money, have they? They've more used what the club's earned, right?
I haven't gone deep into the financials. If you use it, look, whatever sort of system, that's not the right word, but whatever style they use in terms of how they run the club has been working, which is, I can't say the main thing because obviously you need to do due diligence in finding a prospective buyer, make sure everything's above board, and that's where this state ownership sort of groups, they become a little bit murky, particularly in the Western world, I guess, with our different ideologies. It's hard. I don't want to go too deep into the politics of it all and the morality of it all. But I mean, at the same time, you look at what they've done for City. You look at, I guess, to a lesser extent, what they've done for PSG, even though that's been maybe a bit more scattergun. And even what's happening at Newcastle right now with Saudi backed backing. So, look, it's a tricky one because with it, when it's state backed, you guess that they're sort of promoting the ideologies in which they live by every day, and that
They're
gets a bit
not. They
murky.
don't.
And
They don't
that's
really promote. From what I've seen, like for instance with
yeah, but the
City,
fact
they don't
just
promote the
just the fact that
ideology.
it's yeah, but just the fact that it's state run
They
in
sort
itself
of.
is the symbolism for me that you're sort of doing that. And what I will say is Klopp's put himself in a difficult position if that's the route that we do go to, because he's been so outspoken on issues like this. So if he chooses to stay, then he's got to cop a lot of backlash.
Yeah.
So he'll be in a tricky predicament himself if we choose to go that route. Um, so yeah, there's definitely pros and cons to it, but the main thing is just do your due diligence, make sure everything's above board. But obviously, City and PSG and Newcastle probably did that and came to this conclusion. So it's not like we'd be the first club going into state-run sort of ownership, sort of stuff like
Yeah.
that.
Well, just on the point, like I wouldn't say that they promote their culture, or I guess they promote their culture because they want people to come there and as a tourist and that, but they more put a blanket over it or turn a blind eye to all the bad, and they're like, oh no, like we're so wonderful. That's more what they do rather than promoting their ideology, for instance, which obviously conflicts with a lot of Western values. So it's it seems murky, and yeah, like you said, Klopp has, like, I think it just a couple of days ago he sort of spoke out against. I don't think he necessarily spoke out necessarily about the Qatar World Cup. I think he was more digging at the journalists for not doing their job in the first place, because I think he was mentioning that like 10 years ago or 12 years ago when it was announced, no one was reporting on all the stuff that's happening, but now when it's like 6 months out, a year out, etc., from like as we're drawing closer to it, now everyone's starting to voice their displeasure or their concerns with what's going on. But just on why FSG might want to do it, like I think Simon Jordan mentioned that you see what's going on with Chelsea at the moment, for instance, where it like they invested what, like 200 million just on like 3 or 4 defenders, like just in this transfer window. They spent, I think, I can't remember if it was like 4 billion on the club, like 2 billion to buy it, and then another 2 billion to like as a commitment to further invest in the club or something over the next 3 or 4 or 5 years. So like now that Chelsea aren't going that well, the the whole notion is that football clubs actually lose money. They don't make money. So if you want to squander your riches, the best thing to do is to buy a football club. So right now is probably the best time to buy before, I guess, investors start seeing the non-return on investment, and that's what's happening at Chelsea at the moment. Things could turn around, obviously, later in the season or even next season. It could be a complete 180 from where they are now. But it could just be that, like, just a timing thing. Like, let's get out while we're on top. And especially since Liverpool's struggling as well.
Yeah, that is something that might go into it. Although, like I said, they have committed to building the new stand, so it is an interesting time to be getting out, not seeing the fruits of that labour. But I think Soccernomics already debunked this when that came out, when that really good book came out years ago. And I think the main premise in there, in terms of owning a club, was you're not here to make money. You got to football clubs are like you lose money when you invest in football clubs, and that's the way it's got to be. The interesting thing will be to see how much. I don't know the figure of how much FSG actually bought the club for. I should probably know that, but it'll be interesting to see what profit they turn in terms of what they bought it for and now what they're selling it for. Because I imagine that the price would have increased maybe a couple bill even, because I think from where Liverpool started to where we are now, it's a completely different prospect of a club, for players, for fans. And obviously, FSG were huge at all the work they did in America, in terms of bringing people like LeBron James on board to increase the publicity through other sports. I imagine they were hugely instrumental in bringing Nike on board, and Nike's probably the biggest sporting brand. You could talk about Adidas as well, but Nike has huge pull in America. So I imagine Liverpool's American market really increased over this time as well. So yeah, it'll be interesting to see what kind of profit they turn in terms of just selling the club. But you know that over this time, I think I was reading that this new stand is going to cost. I think it was like 20. It was a few tens of millions more than it would have cost pre-pandemic. Yet they've committed to putting that money in. So when the money's needed to be spent, they haven't shied away from it, which has been really good to see. And obviously they've already been involved in sporting ventures with like Boston Red Sox, and I think they have another stake in something else over in America. So I know American sports and European football doesn't work the same. I think you're a little bit more secure in your investment over in America, just because obviously no relegation, and I think it's a little less volatile, obviously, because of that. But yeah, they knew what they'll get into in terms of investing in sport, and yeah, that's a good point. With the club on the wane a little bit, maybe it was just a good time for them. And it's been 12 years, I guess, I think. So now it just might be time for something new for them. And yeah, we'll see what direction they get. We'll go in and we'll see what kind of profit they turn, if you're interested in that as well.
Yeah, I'm not. I can't remember the exact wording off the top of my head, but I think who's the head of FSG, or whoever it is.
John Henry, and there's another guy. I can't remember his name, but John Henry's the main one.
I think he didn't. I think he didn't specifically say that Liverpool are up for sale. I think he just said that they'd explore potential investors. He worded it like that but even saying that, like, you're basically inviting buyers in, and you know how the whole notion of, like, if you want to sell something for at least a higher price, don't show your intention to sell. So could he have done it privately between? I'm sure he knows plenty of investors and rich people that, you know, he could have been like, hey, look, like, this is what I'm potentially looking at. But now that he's opened the door, I don't know. Maybe it's also a media thing. Like, you get more people talking about Liverpool, more people exploring Liverpool, coming to their social media accounts and that too. So it could also be that he's mentioned it. Maybe they have no intention to sell. They just wanted to stir up a bit of media attention, sort of like the Daniel Ek thing last year. Or was it earlier this year? Where he had this. It was like a 1 month sort of frenzied media campaign in terms of wanting to buy Arsenal, wherein that, like, just went away. Could even be something like that. Could be a nothing burger at the end of the day too.
Maybe. But should we change our attention to happenings on the pitch.
Yeah, this is sort of like the finances without the numbers. Well, where do you want to begin? Because our two teams got the results that we needed. Our obviously Arsenal's win helped you guys a lot too, and also United dropped points against Unai Emery's first match in charge of Aston Villa. So you, in terms of a Liverpool fan, you must be ecstatic in terms of the results from this weekend.
Static's a little bit far, given that
Well,
we're still in eighth.
yeah, but
they were good. They were very good results for us.
Yeah, but
are
you 4 points off the top of not the top off fourth now? Is that right? I think 4 points.
I think if we win our game in hand, we'll be 4 points behind Tottenham. I think they would still be top four. Tottenham.
Hang on, let me check.
No one got the points to jump them.
Yeah, Tottenham are on 26. Oh no, you guys are 4 points behind United. Yeah, that's what I. But then, yeah, if you guys win
we've played the same amount of games as United, right? It's just Tottenham, I think, that we.
Yeah, you played the same amount of games as United, but yeah, like it helped you guys, and like you guys are now 2 points behind Chelsea, same amount of games. So
I think that's about right, to be fair, as well, because I've been on Chelsea all season. I think Chelsea and Liverpool have actually been very comparable in how poor they've been this season. I was always a little bit miffed that Chelsea were clinging into the top four for all those weeks, because I'm like, they're not that much better than us. They should be about where we are.
Yeah, like after seeing the game on against Arsenal, like I was not impressed.
Let's start there. We'll start there.
You want to start there?
Yeah, I'm interested. Yeah, I'm interested to get your thoughts on what happened at the bridge on the weekend.
You know what? The scoreline didn't. I don't think the scoreline represented how the game actually was.
It flattered Chelsea.
Yes,
that scoreline flattered Chelsea, no doubt.
Granted, Chelsea did defend pretty well, but Arsenal did have. I wouldn't necessarily say clear-cut chances. I'd say like a lot of half chances.
Chances to make chances.
Yeah, like I like every time there was like an action or a play that resulted in some kind of half chance or a chance before a chance, I kept on saying like it's just missing that final touch or that final ball. Like everything is great from defense up until the 16-yard box, and I think like for instance last year Mikel mentioned it. I think at the game that we drew against you guys, or we lost to you guys at Anfield. I think in the League Cup, in the Carabao Cup, like he said that the difference was
that was a draw at Anfield in the League Cup.
No, what game was it where he said like the difference was in the 16-yard boxes? Like everywhere else on the pitch, it was very even, but the difference was in the 16-yard box. And like Chelsea, obviously they had like one half chance maybe, but other than that they didn't threaten at all really. And yeah, other than the scoreline only being 1-0, I wouldn't necessarily go as far as saying a dominant display or performance. I'd say controlled performance, because dominant means that you're putting like 3 or 4 goals in the back of the net in my view. So yeah, I'd say controlled.
I think that's fair. Dominant might be a bit strong, but in terms of what happened in between the boxes, it was dominant. Yeah. Chelsea. We'll go into the game before going into some bigger picture stuff. And in the game, what I thought, and what I've been hearing in terms of reaction outside of the game, has been able to tell me whether you have been watching football all season, and a lot of pundits or people talking on podcasts that I listen to maybe haven't been watching as intently as they probably should be, because they're almost taking a lot of stock in this Arsenal win and performance. I guess this is bigger picture stuff. Sorry to ruin the timeline. And B, whether you're an Arsenal fan like yourself, who has been denying that you're in a title race all season, when I've been trying to tell you should believe that you're in a title race now, because
I think Mikel said that they are.
Yeah, he has. And I think the cat is out of the bag now. But yeah, I've been saying that all year because the only team who I've seen qualities of that are at the City level and could challenge City have been from Arsenal all season. To be fair, so in terms of what we saw in the game, I wasn't surprised at all from what I saw from Arsenal, as to be expected. That containing play was fantastic again, but on the flip side, and I'll get into this in a minute, Chelsea played unbelievably into your hands in terms of that containing play, which for me is still the best thing you do. Getting the ball, not getting the ball forward in terms of lumping it forward, but getting the ball into their half and then setting up a shape behind the ball that contains the opposition deep in their half. And there's two sides to that. It's the shape that you set up behind the ball, but it's also now that counter press that you have from the front three, in particular, and we've said this all season, Gabriel Jesus, whose main thing that he's brought to the team isn't so much the goals, which we'll probably touch on in a minute, but it's that focal point pressing, it's that energy, it's that athleticism. He's relentless in the counter press. He's relentless in terms of putting pressure on centre backs, but then also if the ball goes into the holding midfielder, he'll put pressure on from behind. I think he nicked one on the weekend, and they nearly created a chance from that. A lot of Arsenal's chances come from that containing play, either from the initial counter press or winning the ball because of a loose pass from that shape behind and then going again. They're fantastic at that. Potentially better than Man City in that aspect of the game. But like we've talked about, Man City have so many different ways that they can win games, which is why I'd still put them as favourites in a title race. But Chelsea played straight into Arsenal's hands in terms of the game. I thought the only thing I could think of was why Potter wanted all his attacking players so narrow. There's two things. One thing is the I'll get back to that thing actually. The first thing is he maybe wanted Arsenal. He didn't want those inverted fullbacks having time and space to play with the ball. But what it did by all those players coming narrow is Arsenal could set up that shape that they always want to set up behind the ball easily, and there was no width to worry about. Where they're just my initial reaction is if you're playing against Arsenal, firstly, you need to be good against the counter press. You need to have the ability to play 2-3 passes to get away from that. Much like we've seen teams against Liverpool in recent seasons, if you can play past the initial press, you've got space. But Chelsea never gave themselves the space in this game because they wanted all their players narrow. So they were never stretching that Arsenal shape behind the ball. And so, look, can Potter be blamed completely for that? I thought the tactics were wrong in that aspect. You needed some width to stretch Ben White and Zinchenko and make them defend in 1v1 situations. Or if they were able to do that, give your midfield more space, particularly because we know Xhaka and Ødegaard like to join in the attacks rather than sit next to Partey. So could you maybe swamp Partey, or could you get those one-in-ones in wide areas? They never tried to. They never played with enough width to do that. So it played into Arsenal's hands of what the shape they want. But the other factor is as well, the reason why I can't completely blame Potter, the squad makeup is just not conducive to doing things like that. Where are the wingers in that Chelsea squad? Do you want to play Pulisic? He's been bang average all season whenever he's played. Do you want to play Sterling out wide? He hasn't been that player in years. I think he's a second striker or at best an inside forward. Do you want to play Ziyech out there? He's got like 20 minutes of game time this season. Loftus-Cheek, do you want to play out wide? I was surprised to see Kovacic didn't start
Yeah,
the
that was
game
strange.
because it was one of only two players that we thought
Your
could get
boy
into a
started.
combined. Oh, my goodness, I knew he'd start. I just didn't know where. But apparently he's a central midfielder now. But yeah, that squad makeup for Chelsea, I think, is awful. To be quite honest, I've been saying that since the start of the season. I don't think there's been much thought in terms of how the pieces go together when they were buying them. I think they've fallen into the trap of buying underrated, overrated guys, as I'll call them, because they were like good for these clubs, particularly Cucurella, who was very good for Brighton. And you could say, well, he was still at Brighton. Oh, maybe this guy's a bit underrated. and then they go and splash the money that they did on him and expect him to be the savior. And then it's like, wow, this guy's overrated now. This guy's swung too far the other way. He's not going to solve your problems. He's a decent functional left back, but to be paying, what was it, 70
I think it was
in the end?
70, yeah.
65, 70? Yeah, for a player who is nowhere near worth that money. He was good, and he has been bad at Chelsea. He looks like he's got a bit of deer in the headlights at a big club. And then
He
obviously
started off
Fofana
alright.
is,
Like, under Tuchel, he
yeah,
started off
yeah.
okay.
Yeah, and I think still ultimately Tuchel is a better manager than Potter.
Yeah.
And Potter's going to have growing pains in this. But I've been annoyed to see, and I'll round this around to the bigger picture. I've been annoyed to see some of the reaction against Potter as well at Chelsea because I don't know if you're a Chelsea supporter or if you're someone who's been intently watching football all season. You've got to understand that Chelsea squad is not up to standard. I don't see how you can think that squad who now have key injuries to. I know that I don't think Fofana was going to be the answer, but he would have been a nice player to have available. Koulibaly's been in and out. He was on the bench for this game. I was interested about that one as well. But obviously keeping Azpilicueta, who I think was borderline past it last season.
He was
The
actually alright
injuries,
this game.
obviously. Yeah, Azpilicueta was fine. I
Yeah, he
thought
was
he
actually
used him
okay this
fine.
game.
The problem was when he got the ball, he had no one in front of him
Yeah.
to play the ball to. But the good thing that he did was he allowed Azpilicueta to hold his position. He didn't expect him to bomb forward or anything like that. Yeah, and you haven't addressed the winger problems. You haven't addressed the number 9 problem. You brought in Aubameyang, who's absolutely not. We saw what he could still do in the Premier League when he was still at Arsenal, and it just wasn't good. I didn't completely disagree with that one just because of the price. It was a decent price, but he was definitely not an answer to any problems. Reece James and Ben Chilwell, who are massive creators, particularly Reece James for this team, being out is huge, and you can't overlook that. So yeah, Potter's inherited a squad that isn't right, but at the same time, to sort of criticize him a bit, you've got to understand that that's what you walk into at Chelsea. You don't necessarily buy the players. Pretty much the whole reason that job becomes available is because Tuchel's butting heads with the owners and how to push the club forward. So you've got to expect that. You've got to understand that another world class manager was there and didn't like what he was working with. So if you're going into there, are you going to like what you're working with a bit more? Evidently not, because what we've seen from Potter's performances, I know he's got good results and he's done a good job to get them out of the Champions League group when that looked really precarious. So we can't understate that. But the performances have been either extensions of what we saw under Tuchel earlier in the season, or in this case, in this game, just flat out wrong for the reasons that we've already talked about. So. Yeah, I think that hits probably the micro and the macro. And there's 2 questions I want to ask you before flipping it back to you. The first question is, we talked a little bit about Gabriel Jesus last pod, and you were a little bit surprised to hear that I always thought he was a striker. And I was listening to another pod yesterday. I think I can't remember which one of my regular ones, and they were talking about how Jesus has regularly underachieved his XG, which is all the rage now, whether you're overachieving or underachieving that. So that I guess goes into your maybe surprise that why I thought he was always a striker. But do you think that he's got a chance to progress into the striker you want to see in terms of being clinical, maybe scoring 20, 22, 23 goals in the league, being that kind of striker? Or do you think he's more that utility forward who maybe in the Firmino role a little bit more, who offers that press, who offers the positioning, offers those different things maybe for other guys to score? And the other question is, what percentage would you put? I think we can agree now that it's City and Arsenal. We'll see if things flip when we come back from the World Cup, but I honestly don't expect them to. I think these 2 teams have been clearly the best in the first half of the season. So what percentage do you put on those teams? What percentage do you put on them winning the league? I guess they're my 2 questions. Flipping it back to you.
Fitty.
No. You guys are top, so you've been playing well.
Yeah, I know, but I think 2 or 3 weeks ago I said I want to see how we do against City, and I think that first game is at the Emirates as well. So, and I think this season we actually have 100% record at the Emirates so far. We haven't dropped any points at the Emirates. The only points that we've dropped have been away, which have been to Southampton and to United. I'll touch on the Jesus one. You mentioned Firmino, but the first player that came into my mind was Benzema. But Firmino is also a good one as well. I guess Firmino and Benzema they had similar roles. Benzema, at least last season, he was starting to score a lot more goals because I think he was probably averaging 15, 20 goals. And last season, didn't he get closer to 30?
Yeah, I think to be fair as well, his numbers bumped up the season before as well.
Yeah, when Ronaldo
he
left.
Scored a lot of goals. Yeah, I think he scored a lot of goals that season as well.
But it might be similar to that where like he's not occupying the same spaces that, for instance, Haaland is occupying for City. Haaland's just getting on the end of things, whereas Jesus is like he's popping up at left back and at centre back at times in the Chelsea game and even in other games as well. Like. To defend, so he's tracking back all the way into his own box to win the ball back, and you won't see Haaland doing that unless he comes back to defend a corner. So he's not. That's probably why his goals are so low, because he's not playing like there on the two defenders with his back to goal, or trying to make those runs past those two defenders between the defender and the right back or left back. So he's got a completely different role. So that's why he only has 5 goals, but I think he has 6 assists so far as well. So he has 11 goal contributions in how many games have they played? I'm not sure if that's just Premier League or if that's all competitions, but even if it's all competitions, I think he's played like 15, 16 games. So 11 goal contributions in 15, 16 games it's a really good return. So I don't think unless like Arsenal start like blowing teams out of the water, similar to Nottingham, but Nottingham are bottom of the league. I don't see him getting 2-3 goals or like in every single game, similar to Haaland.
That's a high bar to set.
But even so, the 5 against Nottingham, he didn't get 1 in that game. So
yeah, and I guess the question is, can the main question here, the crux of it is probably, can you teach yourself to be a good finisher? Because he's only 25, so he's got time to improve. But is that just something you're born with? And those goals,
I think you can.
I think you've got to see. I think it's a bit of both.
We saw it with Salah. Like Salah, the season before he broke the record, he was getting into those positions, and I think I'd even like when we would talk about it, the game on Facebook and stuff. I'd tell you, like, Salah he should have had like 3 or 4 goals in the game, but he only had 1 or even none. And then the following season, like did he score 36 in the league or 34?
His first season, he scored 32 in the league, which is still the Premier League record.
That's not in his first season. Wasn't that his second season?
Yeah, 17-18, the first season he came. That season we made the Champions League, he scored 32. I don't know how many he scored second season. It wasn't that much, obviously, because he still holds the record for that season, 32 in that season, which Haaland should break.
That's a little bit strange to me. I thought like this first season he was like in terms of finishing, because he'd get like 5 or 6 chances, but he'd only put away 1 of them, and like 5 or 6. No,
you're right.
Clear cut.
I still think the finishing was and still is a little bit poor for Salah, but he's perpetual motion in terms of chance creation.
Yeah,
he's always there if there's a chance to be had.
But he's improved his finishing a lot. So like, I think to a certain degree, it's teachable. Even Henry is a good example. Like, he talks about how he would improve. He actually improved on his finishing because at club level he'd always play out on the left or right wing, and then I think Wenger started playing him through the middle, so he had to improve on his finishing. And then a lot of people consider him the best striker or even the best. Well, Alan Shearer holds the goal record, but a lot of people consider him the best striker in the Premier League, or at least the best player that's ever played in the Premier League.
Yeah, probably for me, probably the highest peak that we've seen in the Premier League.
Yeah, like on Henri with the gloves on.
The high socks and the gloves. It was game over.
Yeah, it's game over before you walk on the pitch. But yeah, look, 25. He's still young. Like what people hit their peak when they're 27, 28. And now some players are even hitting it a little bit later because of all the developments in sports science and in diets and all that stuff. So technically, me and we should be in our peaks, considering we're 30. I feel anything but peak. This is off peak. But yeah, considering this is also his first season, and the style is very similar to City, I think it should get better and better, especially as he's assimilated extremely well into Arsenal and into the team, and it probably helps that there's a bit of a Brazilian contingent in the team. But I imagine that it will get better and better, and like next season, you'd expect him to build on this season where he's already set a pretty high bar. I wouldn't say extremely high, but he's set a pretty high bar considering he's hit the ground like sprinting or running. Depending on how you really want to look at it. Maybe if he scored more goals, you'd say sprinting. In terms of, I guess, title chances, I don't know. It's hard. Like City have won it. They know their whole team knows how to win it. The only people that don't know how to win a league, I guess, is Haaland. Actually, unless he's won like in Norway, the league, or unless he's done it with Leipzig.
He would have won it with Salzburg. I imagine.
Salzburg, not Leipzig.
Yeah.
Unless he's won it with them, or in Norway. But like he doesn't have any experience in winning the Premier League. Is there anyone else that they brought in that doesn't have any experience in winning the Premier League?
No, they brought in Calvin Phillips and Akanji.
Calvin Phillips
it depends how much you expect them to play. Yeah,
Akanji's played every single game pretty much. But he looks like he's
since he came into the team, he has played. Pretty much every game.
And he seems pretty solid, pretty okay. I wouldn't necessarily say he's like. I wouldn't necessarily say he's at like a Ruben Diaz level, or I'd say Saliba's a better defender than him, or at least he's made a bigger impact, at least. But yeah, like pretty much their whole squad knows how to win the Premier League. So that, whereas like in our team, we only have Jesus and Zinchenko, who know how to... Partey, I don't think he won the league with Atletico. I think he left the season that they actually won it. So... yeah, who is there in the Arsenal's team that knows how to? I guess Arteta as well as a assistant coach, he knows how to win the league as well. So there's only like 3 people in there that actually have experience in knowing what it takes. So that's the only, I guess, concern. Like Man City know how to manage that run in of the final like 10 games, because they've shown it season after season where like they're either behind. For instance, you've been Liverpool's always been like their second or first, but like they showed it numerous times that when it comes to crunch time and you guys are on their coattails or they're chasing you, they can string together 10, 14, 15 wins in a row. So like no dropped points. Arsenal don't have that experience, and like we saw last year in the run-in for top 4, they dropped the ball after being in I wouldn't necessarily say commanding position, but it was essentially theirs to lose. Like they only needed to win out of like the 3 or 4 games remaining. They only needed to win one of them, and they didn't. So
what's your percentage chances?
I want to see the City Arsenal game but I'll say Barring any injuries,
Yeah.
I'll say 40% for Arsenal.
That's high. I thought I was going to go high with 25, but
I was gonna say 30, but
40%.
if there's no injuries and like this starting 11 stays the same, I
And
think.
that's what I factored in. The injuries I had to factor in and push you guys down a little bit because I think if City get injured, like the question is, if both teams get injuries to key players, who copes with it better? I think City undoubtedly cope with it
Well,
better,
City have
and that's why I
lost.
had to push
Yeah, well, City have
yours
lost.
down a bit.
Phillips hasn't been able to come into the team. He keeps getting
Yeah,
re-injured, I think. Um, can Walker is injured, and he's an iffy one. That one because that was basically him re-injuring himself from the injury that he had last season. So I guess that's comparable then to Tomiyasu because Tomiyasu got injured in the Zurich game. So they're not obviously on equal levels because but like it's the same type of injury where like it could be a struggle to come back just because like you come back for like 20 minutes 30 minutes and then the injury comes back and then you're out for like 2 or 3 or 4 weeks and then you try to come back and then you're out again, so it could be one of those ones. Partey, he doesn't have the best track record, but other than that there's not really any, like, knock on wood. Yeah. There's not really any players that have like track records with injuries. Like Martinelli did when he was like a year or two ago, but it seems like that's behind him. Maybe that was one of those things where like when you have your growth spurt late, and then you start to get these injuries like with your back and like with your legs and stuff like that. I remember when I was 12 or 13, I already like I started shooting up already then, and my lower back was effed. Like I couldn't get out of bed at some points, and like just because I shot up too quickly. And I know some people have their growth spurts obviously like when they're 16, 17, 18. So I don't know. It's barring injuries, I'll say 60-40 just because we are also ahead of them. And you know how I said that the difference is in the picking up points against your rivals. So like we picked up 0 points against Liverpool, 3 points against Tottenham, 3 points against Chelsea, 3 points against United, which again we're hopefully going to pick up 3 points minimum, considering we lost to them. We picked up 0 against City as well last season, and this season we've already picked up 3 against Liverpool. We've already at home, same as last season, we've already picked up 3 against Tottenham. Away, we've picked up 3 against Chelsea, same as last season, I guess, as well. But yeah, it's going to be interesting to see that run in, especially February, March when the Europa League and Champions League starts. That's going to be the key, I reckon.
Yeah, and another key is you guys haven't played 1 or 3 at all yet this season. You haven't played Newcastle either yet, have you?
No, yeah. So we play them after the World Cup.
So there's no doubt you've played those big teams, where you've played the big teams who aren't performing to what we probably expected them to perform. I guess at the time you met Tottenham, they were still. It was you guys were challenging for second, really, to see who would challenge for City. Yeah, I love that after all these weeks where I've been telling you guys are in a title race, you guys should be in a title, and now you were like, no, top 4, and now all of a sudden 40% chance we can win the league.
I don't know, like it's.
I sprung that one on you, but
yeah, but look, I just think like how I said with Tottenham, like for instance, like the way they're playing isn't sustainable because you're playing badly, and yes, you're getting results, but and like that was earlier in the season where they were playing badly, and they're still playing badly, if not worse than what they were playing earlier in the season.
It's not badly per se for me. It's
bad style.
It's not proactively. And when you don't play proactively, and I've said it for years about Atletico, and Jurgen Klopp always echoes these sentiments. If you play in the way where you sit back and you can see control in a game, you must get luck in those games. So if a ball bounces the wrong way in your penalty area, or if Eric Dyer makes a stupid mistake like he did on the weekend,
Yeah.
you put yourself at the mercy, and your whole game plan needs to change. So when you play a style like that, to your point, that's why it's not sustainable for me. I think teams can do it well. They can do the sit back, soak up pressure well, and they have historically in the past. And whether you can still do it in today's football is a question for another day. One that we've maybe already addressed with the lack of defenders in the world. But when you play that style, you leave yourselves in the hands of luck, I think, a lot more than if you try and play proactively like Arsenal do in the opposition's half, where you're the one trying to force the mistakes to create those chances. But just to finish on the Arsenal point,
Just
I
before
know
that,
going in, yeah, go on.
I just want to mention though, like Atletico I didn't obviously watch all of their games, but they only really play that way against Barca and Real, teams that are better than them. Whereas against the smaller teams, they're actually trying to play a little bit more proactively. Tottenham aren't playing proactively even against the teams that they should be beating.
Yeah,
So that's
yeah, and
a
what
problem.
I'm talking about Atletico back in the day, as well, but they had quality as well.
Yeah.
You can't deny
Oh
that.
yeah.
And Tottenham obviously have quality, which has seen them through a lot of games
Only up front.
as well. And to that point, Atletico as well. Even in those big games, if you remember some of the big Champions League games, for the first 20, 25 minutes, they would actually press and they would be in your face a lot, particularly against Barcelona. Even at the Nou Camp, for 20 minutes, they would go out there and say, "All right, we just got to go out and press." And then after that, it was all hands to the deck behind. But just to finish on the Arsenal point, I know I think going into the season, or maybe when they started rolling a little bit, I said if Gabriel Jesus could hit this point of the season with 12 or so Premier League goals, then I think Arsenal would have a real chance of being up there in a title challenge. So that hasn't panned out. But the things that we couldn't have foreseen have been, to your point on Partey, him staying fit. I don't think we could have foreseen that for as long as he has so far this season. Obviously, Granit Xhaka, I don't think we could have foreseen him
No.
becoming a genuinely very good central midfielder in sort of world standards. And I think William Saliba is probably the last one where I think we were excited for him to come back to the team, particularly after he won, what was it, young player of the
Yeah.
league in Ligue 1. And Marseille obviously finished second over there, and he was a big part of it. And to be honest, he was a player who I thought should have been in the squad last season, but whether I'm right or wrong about that, who knows? Because maybe it's all that experience he got over
Yeah.
there
I
that
think it
is
helps.
leading him to perform in the way he is, rather than him being part of a sort of semi-struggling Arsenal team last season where he couldn't get that confidence. But I don't know, correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't think we came into the season expecting him to be as big a difference maker as he has been in that centre back. So I think all those things accumulated have sort of led you guys to where you are, and have overlooked. I don't know if overlook's the right word, but like have made up for maybe definitely the lack of goals from Jesus, because I think it's now 9 or something that he hasn't scored in the league, which is a little bit worrying for your striker. But like we keep saying, the other things he does for the team, I think can't be underestimated, and they're a big reason why Arsenal look as good as they do. The only thing you wish is that he could get a few more goals.
Yeah, that's probably the only real thing missing. I think I also heard like Arteta said that if they want to win the league, they need to be able to score like as a team or a squad. They need to be able to score 100 goals.
I think that's a fair number.
I'm not sure how many they have at the moment. I think they have like 30. Hang on, goals for 31. So after a third of the game, they're about on track to
Yeah.
to hit that total if they can keep scoring and like the amount that they do. But enough about Arsenal and Chelsea. Let's move on. We spent about half an hour talking about these two.
Well, your manager admitted you're in the title race, so I think
For
it
the
was
first
fair
time.
to do so.
No, that was a little bit surprising, but look, third of the season in, top of the table, only dropped 5 points. So we could be on 39, for instance. So only dropped 5 points I think we're on a good track. Hopefully it's not
40%.
barring injuries. I did put that little asterisk there. So yeah, let's see. Also, like for instance, City. Haaland was out for what, a week or two. He had a bit of a niggle. Already the beast. He's shown he can bleed.
No, he still came on and scored the winner against Fulham, didn't he?
Yeah, but it was a penalty. And Leno, we'll touch on. Well, I guess we'll touch on that game at the now though.
Yeah.
Just really quickly before we go into Liverpool Tottenham, because I did make a point in it, and this also will go into the Liverpool Tottenham game as well, because there was a similar incident. I wrote down a point.
About the penalty, I imagine.
Yeah, there was about the penalty. Basically, like, do you reckon that was a penalty? Because I actually don't think
I don't think it was a penalty.
I don't think it was.
To be honest, and everyone's like, "Yeah, that's a definite penalty." I'm like, I don't think that's a penalty. No. His touch is going straight to the goalkeeper. I think if Cancelo wanted to, he could maybe have put a little bit less force in it.
Yeah,
I don't think he needed to be as forceful as he was. But honestly, like, I thought it was a soft penalty and a soft red card.
Oh, like, that was atrocious that it's a red card as well. But, like...
It goes back to that thing, you didn't play the ball, so you have to be sent off for a goal-scoring opportunity. I don't know. We need to change that.
How is shoulder to shoulder not playing the ball, I guess? Like, it's shoulder to shoulder. Yes, it might have been a little bit... Like, if you go, like, 50%... Like, if you cut his body, like, in half if you side on, maybe it was on, like, the back side of that halfway line, if you know what I'm talking about, like if you go
but there. You know what else goes into that? When attackers want to take their touch around, they'll lean in like this so that you are getting their back rather than their side. The referees need to see these tricks that attackers are doing and say, look, I'm not giving you shit for that.
Yeah,
that's a bullshit tactic.
However, my point that I made was Erling Haaland's goal against Brighton. Do you remember how we were praising his strength?
Yeah, that was the same incident.
It was exactly the same. Exactly. And
I thought that was borderline, to be fair, because my thinking is, I'm a defensive-minded thinker where I think that the benefit of the doubt should go to not giving goals away when it's a sort of 50-50 decision. So, like, honestly, my thinking might be a bit skewed in terms of this, but I thought the fact that he's running into an open goal and he's bodied someone out of the way, I think you're more likely to give a foul for that, to be quite honest. It's like, that's directly led to a goal. I think he's used excessive force. I think he's done the same thing.
I reckon it was exactly the same. Like,
exactly. So yeah, I get your point on inconsistency there. If you got to pay that as a goal, you've got to not give the penalty for.
But like, I can't remember whether we commented on it, but like, I remember seeing it, I was like, oh man, what a beast! Like, like he's just playing with these kids on the Premier League fields, like. And then we see the exact same incident, and then a player is given a red card and a penalty is given. Like, what the hell? And then a similar incident happened in the Tottenham Liverpool game as well. I think Trent.
The only thing I'll say before we go to Tottenham Liverpool is the good thing is it's sort of karmically evened itself out, if you want, because City got a goal from doing that, but they also got a red card and a goal conceded from doing the same thing. So at least in terms of football justice, it sort of balanced itself out. It's not like they got the goal and then they got a penalty and a red card because of the same thing. Then that would be a complete injustice.
Yeah, but like, when I was watching the game as well, I was thinking, man, City have one man less, but they're playing as if they have one man more. Like, it was almost as if Fulham got the red card. And I got to say, like, can't believe Fulham didn't actually try to start pressing them more and pushing up a little bit higher up the field, especially when you have a man advantage. Like, what the hell were they thinking? Like, they got it completely wrong. Like, when did the red card happen? Like, in the 20th minute or something? So they had, like, another, 70 minutes to actually push forward and, like, stick it to City and really pile on the pressure, and they chose to sit back and they were happy with the 1-1, which is poor.
That's that psychological sort of inferiority complex you already have when you play City. I think even at the start of the season, Liverpool was still clinging on to it because if you remember the game where Nunez gets sent off, Liverpool actually dominated the rest of that game against Palace until the end where it became a bit end to end. But Liverpool actually looked like the team with an extra man after they got a man sent off. So yeah, I think when the mid table, lower table clubs come to these places, there's always a bit of an inferiority complex anyway. But yeah, I agree. On a purely football aspect, you've got to wonder why they didn't take the game a little bit more to City, particularly because they end up losing the game. It's easy to criticise after they lose the game as well.
Yeah, that was a strange one. But look, they managed to get themselves out of the grave. I think I told Matthias, I think there was 3 minutes at a time, and Robinson gives away the penalty in 92 minutes and 50 seconds or 48 seconds. So like literally
a soft penalty at that as well.
Yeah, but that is a pen. Like it is a pen. He did take out his foot.
He didn't take it out. He touched it. And I think I'd be comfortable if we stopped seeing them given as pens, to be quite.
Nah,
but
look,
get it.
That one is
you've given an option for the referee to give a decision, but contact is allowed in this sport. Like a little bit of contact doesn't bring someone down. It doesn't bring someone down. That contact does not bring someone down.
I will admit De Bruyne did sort of make the most of it, but I still think it's enough to impede on your movement. Whether he went down,
we'll agree to disagree on that.
If he kept his feet, it wouldn't have been a pen.
No, of course. Referees are going to give that pen. And I don't think it should have been a pen. That's another one, actually. I think you need to be taken out. I think you need to be... Your leg needs to change direction from sufficient contact to actually get a penalty for that, especially when your back's to goal.
Yeah, but he turned back towards goal, didn't he?
I know. And I know that traditionally that's been given as a penalty. I'm just saying I would like to see them not given. I think the contact needs to be properly sufficient to give penalties because that's a 75% goal. And it changes seasons, it changes games, and also I don't want to see this crap play acting rewarded. So, but I get where you come from because traditionally that's always been given.
I did think it was a pen. So like I don't agree with you there. And the result, the 1-1 result would have suited me. But it's a pen. But moving on, Liverpool Tottenham. I got to say, excellent first half from you guys. Second half, Tottenham started to try to pile on pressure, and you guys. I'm not sure if it was more Tottenham trying to actually play a little bit more proactively, or if it was you guys just deciding we're 2-0 up, let's take a little bit of a break. Maybe it's a combination of the two. But yeah, like the whole time I was watching, I was just like, man, Tottenham are shit. And I was like, all right, Liverpool, seems like you've gotten your rhythm back, especially what you got. I didn't watch the Napoli game, but like you guys beat Napoli at Anfield, and then you're backing it up with the result at Tottenham by beating them. How did the first goal fall? It was a bit of a
Robertson cross, Nunez
crossfield pass.
Salah.
Yeah. So that was typical sort of Liverpool goal. The second one, mistake from Dyer. he was he a midfielder though, and then now he's a converted centre back.
Yeah, you could have said he was a midfielder years ago when he first came to Tottenham.
Yeah, I think Poch played him.
It was like a right back, centre back, midfield, a bit of a utility player, I'd say. But now he's
Milner.
Pretty much an out-and-out centre back.
Eric Milner.
But you say that first goal for Liverpool is typical.
I felt like it was a sort of typical sort of goal.
Yeah, the build up and everything. But the thing that wasn't typical for me was Darwin in that situation not looking to shoot. And he set up Salah. And I thought that was, if I could actually take the most positive thing out of that game for us, apart from the 3 points, it was that moment. Because if we're going to play this narrow diamond with those two up front, if they can start to forge a little bit of a partnership, and if Darwin can start to embed himself into a team rather than trying to be this maverick that we've seen so far, that's got to be positive signs for Liverpool if him and Salah can start linking up, because that would be a fearsome front two. I think most clubs in the Premier League and in Europe should fear that front two if they can start to click, because we know of all the physical attributes and the aggression that Darwin brings to the game, which I think he's starting to channel in better ways in recent weeks. And obviously we know the qualities of Mo Salah. So, from a Liverpool perspective, that was the bit that got me to raise my eyebrows the most out of this game, because you went through how the game went, and I guess in recent weeks, if someone hadn't seen the game and you showed them the score and asked them how to describe this game, they'd probably tell you exactly what happened without seeing the game, to be quite honest, because Tottenham have been starting all their games slowly recently. 1-0 down to Marseille as well, 2-0 down to Bournemouth in recent weeks. So they've really been struggling in those first halves, but they've always rallied in the second halves, whereas I don't know if Liverpool have been struggling per se in second halves, but they haven't been coming on to teams like they were last season, where we saw a lot of times, even if teams played to Liverpool's level for 50, 60 minutes, they would generally burn out and Liverpool would come on strong in the last 30. So this was the opposite of that, I guess, but Liverpool are the opposite to what they were last season as well. So yeah, it was a game that pretty much went to script. I thought both this game and the Chelsea Arsenal game went to script in terms of how I thought I'd see it, but I didn't expect us to get 2 goals in the first half, which was really positive to win the game. I think this really puts us. Look, let's say if we lost this game, I think top 4 would almost be out of reach going into the second half of the season. But winning this game, like we say, with a win in the game in hand, which the game in hand will now be on the other side of the season, which is good for us as well.
You guys would have
if we can win that,
you guys would have been 11th if you lost.
Exactly. Yeah, and I think closer to relegation than top 4. So. Yeah, it's actually a huge win if you look at it in terms of us wanting to make top 4, and it's a really important one for us. One that, like I said, kind of went to script in terms of how the teams have been playing. Harry Kane's finish was absolutely one. It always amazes me, but it shouldn't by this. But how clinical that guy is! If he gets a chance, he hits corners all the time. Like, his finishing is out of this world. I don't know. Maybe I would say it's the best. He's the best finisher in the world just because he plays for Tottenham and his team. He doesn't get as many chances as a Lewandowski or a Haaland. So when he gets them, he needs to score them, and he does. So that's why, I think the pressure on him to score his chances is higher than those other two, and that's why I'd probably put him as the best finisher in the world. But yeah, Tottenham are slipping. Liverpool get a really important result, and. Yeah, I think we saw why these teams are doing what they're doing this season, or Tottenham in this moment and Liverpool this whole season, really, because they're both very flawed at the end of the day.
One thing that the commentator mentioned was, in the second half, Kane started to actually play as a striker instead of a number 10, and that's when chances actually started to be created and started falling. Whereas in the first half, he's been asked to, play as a 10 instead of an actual 9. So would you say that he's not being utilised properly then? And then is that also maybe because... Is that a combination of the way that, Mourinho sort of integrated that Son-Kane partnership? I know Son didn't play, but Mourinho, sort of converted him from a 9, a little bit more withdrawn, so that he's the one that's facilitating Son. We saw that partnership. I think it's the best partnership in the Premier League in a season, in terms of goals between two players. So, is that just maybe him being in that habit of withdrawing himself, more into the midfield? And then obviously Son's missing, so there's no one there to then finish and score for them. So is the issue there? Is the issue there more the way Kane plays, or just Son missing?
I think it's more Son missing, because I think it's undeniable that this sort of tweak into the way Harry Kane plays in terms of becoming a 9.5 has, for me, catapulted him to another level. A level that I don't think he was on before when he was just a finisher, even though he was a fantastic finisher even before. But now that he can link up the play almost Benzema-like, drop deep, ping those passes out to wing backs, I guess, in this system, and then join in the attack while still getting his numbers. His numbers are still incredible for the way he plays in terms of doing that. I think the main problem in this game was they didn't have Song for him to link up with. And also, another problem in this game is they were how much of it was him changing his style, or how much was it that Tottenham actually played well in the second half and were able to get a foothold in the game so that he could play as the striker? Because if Tottenham are getting penned back, it doesn't matter what he does. Like, he can't play as a striker when the team isn't with him to deliver him balls. So he needs to drop and try and hold up the ball and then try and get the out ball so that the team can counter. So, yeah, I think it was those two things that went into him. But I don't think he's being used wrong, because I think his ability to link up play while still scoring goals is what makes him the player he is nowadays. And for me, I think I rated him third best player in the world when we did that top 25. And just interestingly, it would actually be interesting to do that top 25 again, because I think a lot of those positions have changed in recent weeks, and a lot of players have come on strong in recent weeks while some have maybe faded. So I think when we do that maybe 2/3 of the way through the season again, it'll be interesting to see what we come up with then. And post-World Cup as well. The World Cup will have a massive bearing on that.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Just a question though. Like, now after beating Tottenham at Tottenham, and now with a game in hand, I don't know who that's against. But if you were to, I think that might be Chelsea. I think that game got cancelled, didn't it?
Yeah, you're right. Yep.
Well, I don't know when you guys will play them, because if you were to play them right now, I'd say you guys beat them. And like, I'd say that's like a 60-40, 70-30 that you guys beat them. I'd say it's now, having said that, if you guys beat them, you guys go above Chelsea. So yeah, if the game was played tonight or tomorrow, you would then go on 22 points. Chelsea would still be on 21. So you would go up to 6th, because you would skip Brighton as well. So you would be 4 points behind Tottenham, 1 point behind United. How do you think, and if Newcastle continue their form, because right now they're a bit of an anomaly, like they're sort of they're a little bit of the elephant on the on the tree branch as well. But does Liverpool or Tottenham finish in the top 4? If you guys were to beat Chelsea, and that's like if that was played today or tomorrow, and you guys beat them, and then the point tally is how I said it would be, it's 4 points behind.
Well,
Tottenham.
we could still have both. I mean, if Newcastle can't hold on, and we'll see what happens there. Much like you say, in terms of their similarities to Arsenal's title quest, their race for top 4. Let's see if they can handle when the games, while Ferguson titled squeaky bum time later in the season. So yeah, we could have a scenario where both make it. We could have a scenario where neither make it, where Newcastle hold on and United or Chelsea come strong. So that top 4 race for me, look, I would have already ruled Liverpool out of it if I didn't see inconsistencies in the other teams in recent weeks. But that was the only thing I was clinging to after the Forest and Leeds results, was the inconsistencies from the other teams mean that we're definitely not out of this title race. I mean, the top 4 race. So we go to Tottenham and obviously win. Look, what I can see right now is I don't know, because who knows? I know Chelsea spent a lot in the summer market, but maybe they're willing to pony up and spend a bit more in January, and they can get a few answers in key positions. I probably like, to your point about if Liverpool and Chelsea were playing each other now, I probably put Chelsea as the weakest contender for that top 4 right now. Newcastle, to your point as well, question marks. How do they cope with the pressure down the stretch? But from what we've seen, if they didn't have those question marks, if we were just judging it in a vacuum for what we've seen, they'd be nailed on for third for me, because I think they've been the third most impressive team in the league. Liverpool's pedigree make them a genuine challenger, and Liverpool's ceiling is still quite high, but we need to see it. We need to see it on the other side of the World Cup, see how they come back, see what they look like without so many injuries, maybe rest for a lot of players as well. So Tottenham are probably the steadiest choice. I think they've got the best manager, or not the best manager, but they've got a really good manager who can compete with Klopp's probably the only other one who's on that level. And then you've got Kane and Son, who are actual world class players. So Tottenham are probably the steadiest bet. Liverpool are a good bet for high ceiling. Newcastle, joker in the pack, and Chelsea for me the weakest contender. But a January transfer window might help that cause. So honestly, I don't know. Too many questions about those four. United as well, and United as well. After what we saw, and this will segue into what we saw on the weekend, but. Who knows what to expect with them, because you could have said before this weekend, well, maybe United are the safest bet the way they're coming on, but I think their goal difference is still only hovering about 0, which is never a good thing at this point of the season.
You know, considering it's the US midterms today, you dodged that question like a true politician. Because my question was, who gets top 4, Tottenham or Liverpool?
I've given you the contenders.
Yeah, no, but all right. Let's just say it's locked right now. Let's just say, like, mathematically, the league ends in like 2 or 3 games. Arsenal, Man City, and Newcastle are locked. Let's say it's locked, and it's only Tottenham or Liverpool contending. Considering you'd then be 4 points behind them with the game in hand, who would you nail on? Out of those two,
I'll go Tottenham. Just because
the goal difference.
Bet. I haven't seen it with Liverpool. I just haven't seen it. So Tottenham, at least I've seen some steady results, but I know in recent weeks they've been quite poor.
I don't know. I still can't write you guys off. Like, I didn't write you guys off last season when you had what I think. You were 14 points behind, but you had 2 games in hand, which you won, so you were 8 points behind. I still didn't write you guys off, even back then when it was a 14-point differential, and that title race went down to the final 10 minutes, I guess. So it wasn't quite as frantic as the what was it, 2010, 2011, or 2011, 2012, 20 yeah. So it wasn't quite as frantic as that, but it was close.
Yeah.
So we'll just touch on the other games, and then we'll go into Champions League because the draw happened, and also there's a fun little Europa League game as well.
Yeah.
So actually, that we will segue into that after we just talk about Manchester United, because unless there's any other results or teams that you want to talk about, or just United, and then we'll segue into Barca United. So
no, I don't think so. Obviously, Newcastle get a big win against Southampton, which obviously leads to Hasenhüttl being sacked. So yep. I think we have to mention that, but I didn't actually watch that game, so I sort of had the United game on in the background. Just
same, yeah.
What was going on, and United they were so open in the midfield. Casemiro wasn't doing the job that we've come to expected to him. But I don't know how much you could blame on him, because how much help was he getting from Eriksen played in this game, and Bruno was out. Van der Beek played it. Van der Beek, man, this guy shouldn't be starting games for Man U. I don't know what he's still doing at the club.
Wait, Van der Beek or Van der Beek?
Oh, whatever you want to call
him.
He
looked baked.
Bang average is what I want to call him.
Van der Bang average.
No, man, I don't know why they brought him in the first. Because even in that Ajax team, I was just like, this guy, like, he's fine in this system, but he's not that great. And then obviously he selects him for this game. I don't know. You probably would have been, in hindsight, you would have been better served putting McTominay next to next to Casemiro, so they could somewhat control that midfield. But they got slaughtered in that midfield. And what a great start for Unai Emery and United. Not back to square one. I think they've done enough in recent weeks to sort of earn us not saying that, but it's a big blow because I think going into this game they had a fantastic defensive record as well, and they obviously were apart from that United game, they were doing quite well in terms of results, and performances were somewhat on the up, and this can happen in the Premier League, especially with a new manager bounce. But so it'll be interesting. Again, like we've had to say a few times this season about United, we need to see how they bounce back, and they only have one game to do it before the World Cup, before the World Cup break. So yeah, a bit of blow for them, and what's in the momentum more than anything. I think in terms of top four, obviously it's a blow, but it doesn't knock them out of any race for top four or anything like that. But yeah, they only have one game to bounce back, so they kind of need a win in that game to be going away to the World Cup with still a somewhat good feeling. But this definitely takes the shine off that.
And once again, the club captain did not play. He was on the bench.
Or should he?
Yeah, but he really doesn't rate him. Like Ronaldo was given the captaincy, and like after
that was. Oh, I guess we need to talk about that, don't we? How crazy is that? After being reprimanded for walking off and scolded by his manager, which rightly so.
Yeah.
Somehow he's captain 2 weeks later. When you've got David De Gea in goals, I don't understand that one, to be quite honest.
Even Eriksen maybe, or even Martinez, because Martinez has been such a rock for them in the recent weeks. He looks like he could have leadership qualities because he fights.
Maybe a bit early for him, but
maybe, yeah.
Yeah, I think De Gea is an obvious one. But at the same time, I don't want to put too much stock into this because I don't think it matters that much, to be quite honest. Like, I know there's a symbolism there, and it's like, this guy, is he actually in your project, whatnot? But I don't know. Suarez bit someone, and I think Rodgers, when Gerrard and Carragher were out, he named him as captain for one of those games that were, I think, Tottenham away. And he scored 2 goals and played fantastically well. So I don't know. I don't know how much stock the players themselves put into it. Maybe what's going on?
I'm just laughing. Suarez just biting someone.
No. What makes it worse is he didn't just bite. This was the 3rd time he bit someone in his career.
He's a notorious biter. Like, I don't know, like the way you just said it so casually, like, yeah, Suarez bit someone, like.
Ivanovic. No, I think, to be fair, that was his 2nd time. He bit Ivanovic, got that 10-game ban or whatever.
He's been Chiellini, he's been Ivanovic. Who else has he been?
And then there was one game for Ajax. I don't know who the recipient was, but he bit someone. 3 times in a career. How's that? No wonder he's got those chompers, eh? He just needs to use them.
Oh man, like I don't know how many like games of football I've played, but I have never like it's never crossed my mind to bite someone.
Not even crossed the mind. Like, who's thinking, I gotta bite this guy now?
I think I once gave someone a nipple cripple. Like I did that. And then also this. We'll get back onto but I think we're playing South Melbourne in like it was like under 15s or 16s. They were always like top of the league, and like they were just an absolute like cocky team, and they were absolute like bastards. And then like this one player made a tackle on me. He missed, and like, and then after that, like I shoved him off, and then as I was he said something, and then like as I was walking, I deliberately like walked over his calf and like studded him like right into the calf. So I was like, yeah, fuck you, man. I think those are like the 2 incidences where I've like done something like off the ball, in my career, a short story career. But anyway, yeah, bloody. I think it's perfectly well to now transition into. We'll go into the Europa League. So,
there's one more gripe that I want to bring up. So, the gripe there was I don't want to overreact to Ronaldo being captain because I don't think it affects how United played and how Villa dominated them really to create those chances that they did and deservedly win the game. Also, the other gripe I have. I hate it when people put too much stock into a manager's body language on the touchline. I'm just like, this guy. How can this guy affect? Like, I was listening to the criticism of Potter, for example. It's just
Yeah.
like, oh, he looks so clueless. He's not changing anything. He's not coaching from the sidelines. Like, no, every manager's different. Like, you don't need to be the Antonio Conte telling your players where to be at every moment of the game.
Or
A lot of
Arteta.
managers don't do that. Yeah, or I'll tell you, I'm not that, like, when I coach, I don't like doing that. I don't like coaching in game. I like trying to make sure that the players are prepared going into a game and then just analyzing what can be done. And then the other thing as well, you only have really half time as a manager to change anything. So that's where like we need to analyze what they're doing. But obviously we're not privy to what they're doing at halftime. But what they do on the touchline has no impact on a game whatsoever. If you want to criticize Potter for getting his tactics wrong in the build up to the game, fine. But when you start criticizing a manager's body language on the touchline, I'm just like, what are we doing here? That has absolutely no impact on performance or result. Like, let's criticize what we see on the pitch, but in terms of criticizing the actions of a person who can't influence, I guess can't, it's relative, but has little relevance on, like, has little impact on the game. What we can judge is substitutions and maybe tactical changes. That's it. Like, to judge body language, I think is a bit ridiculous.
Yeah, I think every person is completely different as well. So like, if it's not within a person's nature to be so like animated and everything, then like, because like Arteta, I guess, is sort of in the mold of a Klopp and Pep, probably a little bit more extreme than those two. Simeone's in that same bracket, Conte's in that same bracket, but then yeah, like you have your more quieter managers like Wenger was. I'd say he never really coached from the touchline. Ferguson as well.
Ferguson never did it. Ancelotti never really does it. So
yeah, so you have some managers that it's within their nature, and some that it's not. I think Pep has started to do it less now as he's getting older, and probably because he's been at the club for like 6 years now. So like, whereas mostly he's at clubs for 3 years, so maybe that has something to do with it. But yeah, like I don't read too much into that, because like, what's the point of screaming at like your left or right back on the other side of the pitch to like drop back or something like that, or to push forward? It's like they most likely can't even hear you.
Yeah, and as a player, I'd be getting annoyed at that. I'm like, I know how to play football. You've given us the instructions during the week. Like, you don't need to be yelling at me all the damn time here. And also another thing is, I hate when you can tell that a manager's putting it on a bit just so that like no one's questioning their body language. It's like, that's just fake, man. You're not actually doing anything. Just be yourself, be the manager you want to be, and make sure they're all prepared going into the game, and make sure you get your tactics right, and then everything will be good. It doesn't matter what the hell you do on the touchline, really.
Yeah, exactly. So anyway, to leave the Aston Villa United game, you know what Emery said to Ten Hag and the United players after the game?
Good evening.
Damn it, you got me. Good evening. Yeah. Anyway, United, they have Barca in the Europa League, and then we'll go into the Champions League ties, because I think we got like one or two of them correct, if I'm not mistaken, or maybe we only got one correct.
We definitely got one.
Definitely got one. But Barca versus United sort of dropped the ball, I guess, in the group stages, so they have to face one of the teams.
Sociedad are a good team, to be fair.
Yeah, but would you still say that United are going to finish second in that group? I
think Sociedad took it more seriously as well.
Yeah.
Like the fans and everyone got way more up for it because that's their level, whereas United think that they're still Champions League.
You know what I think it is? Like it might be something like that, like where United think is they're still Champions League material and whatnot. But I think also like the English clubs don't seem to take the Europa League too seriously, whereas like the Spanish clubs, the Portuguese clubs, like the clubs I guess from the continent take the competition seriously, like they want to win it, whereas the English clubs are like, until
they get to about the quarters.
Yeah,
when they actually start thinking about it. But before then, yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, now United have to face Barcelona, who I had my reservations on them. Like I know you, I think you said they are a good chance to make the semis of the Champions League. Um,
Well, they had a chance. They got
yeah,
a crappy group and they didn't play well, but still, they top of La Liga now,
Whereas like
which we'll touch on
I
later.
thought that they'd only get to the last 16.
Yeah.
Maybe the quarters if they got a favorable last 16, but I never put too much stock into them just because like Laporte pretty much gave Xavi almost half a new squad of players, so it takes time to integrate them all. Um, but that's going to be an interesting tie. Like it's an ex Champions League tie. Like albeit both teams aren't at their peak or where they were a couple of years ago, but who would you say is, I guess, favorite in that tie? Like, would you say it's obviously Barcelona, or are you going to revisit this maybe come January, like January 31st or February 1st,
Well,
once the window's closed?
yeah. If you don't want me to give you the politician answer, then I'd have to say Barcelona at the moment, even though that defense never fills me with confidence in terms of injuries, but you got to expect a few of those players will come back. So I think Barcelona have a better squad, a better team, and honestly, Barcelona probably should have still got out of their group, but they left a lot to be desired in those. But like on another day, when they go to the new camp, I mean, when they go to the San Siro against Inter, they could have got a draw or a win out of that game and not put so much pressure on that new camp performance. So look, things sort of went against them, chiefly the group. So I still think Barcelona are in a better spot than Man United, but there's no doubt that this is going to be a fun tie and one that's worthy of the Champions League, to be quite honest, just in terms of reputations of the club. So this round, well, that's the main game. I guess Ajax Union Berlin might be a bit of fun, but this is like the playoff round to see who gets into the round of 16 for the Europa League. So, there's a good chance that Barcelona or United, they beat whoever comes out of that, could be facing an Arsenal or someone like that in the next round. So that could be fun in its own right. I think we'll get a few good ties out of the Europa League in the run into the final, and I think you'll be hard pressed to find any tie that's going to be as big as this one in the whole run up to the final. Like there might be better footballing ties, but in terms of reputation, I don't think you can get a bigger tie in this competition than Barcelona versus United. So that's quite exciting in itself. But if you had to press me, Barcelona, I'd say should get through, but I wouldn't be surprised if United got through.
Yeah, I'd probably say Barcelona are favourites in that one. It's hard to say. Like I think they're both in similar levels of, I guess, on their path to progression and rebuilding. They're obviously I guess they're sort of doing it in a similar style where they're buying ready-made players and then they're also trying to integrate some young players into the team. And I was talking to Matthias like earlier or like yesterday, and I said like Barcelona really screwed up by investing so much into the team only to drop out of the Champions League. Like this is gonna hurt them financially like heaps. And like I liked what, at least last season, I liked what Xavi seemed to have been doing. Like he seemed to have been bringing in younger players, and then this season like Laporte's just giving him all of these like older players, I guess, or sort of players that are already ready-made. And whereas Barca should have, I was expecting them to sort of go along the Arsenal route of getting rid of all these older players, getting rid of all these guys on high wages, and blooding the new talent. Because if you look at where Arsenal were 2 seasons ago, like they had David Luiz, Willian, Ozil. I know Aubameyang only left last season, but they had Aubameyang on the books. And like they had a bunch of like all these older players that they needed to get rid of to completely rebuild the squad. And like they could have done that this season, but now they've delayed their whole progression or their whole rebuild by another season. So they need to, I guess, pick which way are they actually going to do it. Like are they going to get rid of all of these guys, all this, I guess, dead wood, would you say, to a certain extent? and rebuild next summer with, like, I guess, younger players? Or are they just going to continue spending, 100, 200 million every summer to bring in 4 or 5 new players and, like, keep on ruining the team chemistry, I guess, and having to rebuild the team chemistry from scratch every season?
I think all in all, Barcelona are in a better place than they were last season. I know there was an upturn when Xavi got in there, but using players like Aubameyang and Adama Traore was not sustainable. His big mistake, we've been through it, has been reliance on Busquets for me when you've got a Frankie de Jong. But it'll be interesting because if I were to say to you in the summer, going into the summer, and I'll cut a bit of the dead wood out of it, but Barcelona are going to sign Jules Koundé. They're going to sign Frank Kessie. They're going to sign Rafinha, and they're going to sign Lewandowski. Am I missing any key signings?
Did you say Rafinha? Yeah.
Yeah. If it was just those four, I think you'd be saying that's really great business, would you not, for Barcelona? But then you add in a Christensen,
Yeah.
Marcos Alonso.
Yeah.
Yeah, like the dead wood thing, they didn't need those players added as well. But I think if you just added those four that I mentioned at the start, I'd say, yeah, they're in a better position. I know they had to spend a lot of money to get those players, but they'll be in a better position this season for having those four players in the squad. So I think maybe like the dead wood sort of players that we just mentioned that they also went and bought sort of taints their business in the transfer window and makes it look, and it probably is a bit more scattershot than not than what it is, because it is scattershot, but it makes it appear like worse business because it looks like they just didn't really know what they were doing. They're just like, buy this, buy that. But if you just look at those four players in isolation, I'd say, wow, yeah, they'll make the squad infinitely better, to be quite honest. And Robert Lewandowski has, to be fair, just him alone has sort of, because I know the other guys have had injury problems. Frank Kessie isn't really a Barcelona player for whatever reason. I don't think Xavi fancies him, even when you're still using Busquets. And you know what? Barcelona might have to go into the January window looking at another centre back as well, to be quite honest.
Yeah,
Depends how Christensen's fitness is and
but
Araujo and
that was a
players like
shock
that.
as well. PK retiring.
Yeah, of course, and we didn't touch on that, but yeah, emotional scenes at the Camp Nou, his last game at that place. Had a chance to have a penalty. I think Lewandowski wanted to give the penalty to him, but PK said no. It was still 0-0, to be fair, so I think Lewandowski should be taking the penalty, but
Yeah.
he missed it, so that made it worse. But yeah, Gerard Piqué retiring, so you can't even lean on him anymore, even though he was terrible in that game against Inter, obviously, which is sort of somewhat a bit away to be gone. But what a career he's had, what a centre back he's been over the years. Definitely one of the modern greats, if not the all-time great in terms of that position.
Yeah. But yeah, like I said, complete shock. Like, I think it was announced or the day after we had our pod, so we didn't talk about it. But strange that he's doing it, like, not even in, like, I know, like, what, a week or 2 weeks before the World Cup break. But, like, it's strange that he didn't wait till the end of the season, or he didn't wait till at least
Maybe
January or something.
maybe he wanted to go to the World Cup, and once he saw that it wasn't going to happen, then maybe that was just it for him.
Maybe, yeah. Maybe you just want to have that last swan song, sort of like what
And
Ronaldo
it's
and
not
Messi are
like
having.
Yeah, and it's not like he was being relied upon by Xavi. So yeah, he's just like, all right,
Yeah.
I'll clear this wage off your books for the rest of the season. Maybe you can get someone in January, and yeah, I'll step aside.
Yeah, apparently I saw something. Apparently, since the pandemic, like, apparently he's forfeited like over 30 million euros in wages. So like not that like Barca would have paid him that, but he said like, nah, it's fine. So, and I think he has bigger aspirations. Like, people already refer to him as El Presidente and stuff. So he might. Maybe he goes. I don't know when the next re-election is for the Barca president. Maybe he goes for that in whenever that is, in 2 years or 3 years. I'm not sure how long they go for, but I think he already has I think he already owns like a football club in like the third or fourth division, if I'm not mistaken. And then like he has a couple of businesses, like one that's involved with the Davis Cup. So yeah, like he has plenty of ventures, I guess, on the sidelines to keep him occupied outside of I guess the football world.
Yeah, but I think time to move on to the competition that he wishes he helped Barcelona get into the later stages of.
Yeah, if not for his no, leave it.
No.
That was his sliding off. Hang on, let me just bring up the fixtures of what matches we expect. Okay, so I'm just going to go quickly through the matches that we said we wanted or we expected to see. So we wanted to see or expected Barca AC not Barca Bayern AC Milan, Benfica Leipzig, Chelsea Inter, Man City Club Brugge, Napoli Frankfurt, Porto Dortmund, Real Madrid Liverpool, and Tottenham PSG. And what we got, and I think we were saying potentially Bayern PSG, but we went for Bayern AC Milan just because we saw PSG, so we could have got that one right if we went for that one. And the Tottenham one, I think was I at one? Yeah, like if we just swap those two, because Bayern got PSG and Tottenham got AC, and we predicted those, I guess, flipped. So PSG Bayern, Milan Tottenham, Club Brugge Benfica. So Benfica get the easy one. Dortmund Chelsea. Liverpool Real Madrid. So we got that one right. Frankfurt Napoli. Did we get? Oh, we got that one right too. Yeah. Yes. Leipzig, Man City, and I think we were saying Man City, Leipzig potentially, but we obviously went with Club Brugge because Man City always get the easiest, or they seem to always get the easiest, and Inter Porto. So we got 2 out of the 8 correct. Not bad.
Not bad.
Not
what
bad.
we did get was a couple in particular. I'd probably extend it to 3, but there's 2 real, could be finals ties, honestly.
Blockbusters.
Two of the teams who you thought could go really deep and challenge for this competition will be out by the end of this round of 16. And that PSG Bayern tie, my God, what a titanic round of 16 tie. I know we flirted with it. We said we've been pitting these two teams up against each other all season because of their similarities in terms of the competition they face and the unbelievable teams and squads that they have. Well, we got it. We got those two against each other. Like I keep referring to, what PSG are we going to get when Neymar, Mbappe, and Messi are done with the World Cup? There was one of the pods, they tongue in cheek, they asked if Messi wins the World Cup with Argentina, will he even report back to PSG for club football, or will he just be done? He'll just go and chill somewhere. It's like, all right, I'm done with football, guys. It's not going to get any better than this anyway. So, yeah, what a mouth-watering tie. But again, that cloud looms over. What PSG do we get? Because if we get the same PSG that we've got at the start of this season, that will be an awesome tie. But if we get a tie where Neymar's clocked off, Messi's clocked off, and Mbappe's already looking at his next destination, then it could be a little bit less mouth-watering. Not to put a dampener on it, but there is always that potential.
Yeah, that one's just going to be... It's going to be an interesting one because it's also like... you haven't been too hot on Bayern's defense, have you? Even though they put De Ligt in there.
No, and I guess we can tie a little bit of a review into doing these Champions League ties, but again, on the weekend, Bayern go to Hertha Berlin and 3-0 up, cruising in the first, I think, 35 minutes or so. Choupo-Moting has become maybe the best striker in the world, apparently. What's going on there? He's taken the mantle off Mitrovic. But yeah, 3-0 up, cruising, and yeah, well, no, he's a genuine top striker though. But yeah, they're cruising, and then they do the Bayern thing, like they did to Dortmund. They concede 2 goals before halftime, and all of a sudden they're going in 3-2. So they still have this shakiness. They still have this switch off ability at the back. And Matthias de Ligt, to this point, has not answered those questions or has not provided the solution to that defense that he needed to. So, yeah, I still do have question marks over that. But, I mean, any question marks I have over Bayern defense can easily be leveled at PSG because
PSG's
it's
midfield.
maybe not the defense so much, but the
Yeah.
midfield. Oh my god! And Bayern, that's probably where Bayern are strongest with Kimmich and Goretzka in there as 2 world class midfielders. So they'll have their work. Verratti and Vitinha, I guess, Fabian Ruiz will have their work cut out in there. But yeah, Bayern have this switch off ability that hasn't filled me with confidence so far.
Yeah. I wonder how that one's going to pan out. I think I still fancy Bayern just because they have a better mentality. And mentality is what I think gets you over the edge. Also, if I'm not mistaken, the last time they played, PSG knocked out Bayern. I think it was two seasons ago. So
Yeah,
it was,
after Bayern beat them in the final, right,
yeah,
in Lisbon?
yeah.
Yeah.
I think they knocked them out in the quarters because I think who was out? Lewandowski was injured, so he didn't play. And I think it was I think it finished like 1-0 over both legs, if I'm not mistaken. So it was like really low. When they played, it's been really low scoring as well. So maybe we get one of those really crappy, boring ties where it's like, both teams are, I guess, more, I guess, proactive. Wait, no, reactive. Is that the right word? Yeah, reactive.
Well, I don't know. It'll be if Messi, Neymar, and Mbappe are playing the way they've started the season. I don't see how Bayern can keep them out with the defense they have.
Yeah, but if they get no
But
service,
similarly, yes, that's exactly the point. Will they have enough control on the game? Well, PSG don't need control of the game; they just need moments. But will the defense be able to cope with the lack of control that the midfield have on the game, where Bayern should be expected to dominate that midfield area? And just before we move away from this tie, just to go into the recap of what we saw on the weekend, there was a pretty big game in Ligue 1. I think Lorient went into the game third against PSG, and they offered PSG what I would say, apart from Benfica, has probably been PSG's best test of the season because Lorient are a really good side this season, really well organised, and they didn't really change their game plan. They went at PSG, which was really good to see. The only disappointing thing was that they absolutely gifted the first goal, much like the Rome derby, which Lazio won 1-0 through a gifted goal from Roger Ibanez at the back. This was gifted by the Lorient goalkeeper straight to. I can't remember the young kid's name who started for PSG, but he laid up Neymar. They went 1-0 up. Lorient came back and eventually, I think PSG got the win through Danilo. So they had to show some resilience in this game, which will. I know it's just Lorient, but they've been very good this season. One of 2 teams in Ligue 1, along with Lens, who have been probably the standout surprise package. And so far, I think Lens are second now. And I think I touted them a few weeks back with the atmosphere that they create at home games and the way they've been playing. They've been fantastic this season. So PSG were tested in this game. They came through the test. They had to win a little bit ugly. But Neymar was pretty fantastic in this game. Mbappe was a bit quiet. He's been a bit off form, so PSG will be hoping he comes back from the World Cup a bit more on form. But yeah, I think this is just a titanic tie. I think PSG have shown good things in the first half, but that cloud of the World Cup just continues to loom over them. But similarly, the cloud of that defence for Bayern looms over him. So it's a pick'em game. I would agree with you. I would just favour Bayern for the mentality and a bit less of a cloud after the World Cup. I think most of their players will be coming back ready to go again for their club. Whereas I just can't say that for PSG until I see it.
yeah, maybe Goretzka puts on another 10 kilos of muscle again. But the other, I don't know if you want to go through tie go through every single tie or just the
No,
interesting
just the
ones?
main ones, I think, and then
Well, AC Milan, Tottenham. You got like I guess a legacy club in there um, with a not so much legacy club. Conte going up
Did you
against an Italian team.
Sorry to block you off, but did you see Giroud's goal on the weekend for Milan?
No, I did not.
Oh, give it a watch because our boy Tonali's instrumental.
Yeah.
Burst through the midfield, delivers a great cross, but it was almost like the Haaland one where he had to throw himself, but he threw himself foot first, and this one I think he had more control than the Haaland one. He actually volleys it into the opposite side netting, and then this craze, this phase of players who score goals, take their shirts off, continues because he takes his shirt. He's already on a yellow card. Giroud gets himself sent off. How old is he? Is he like 36?
Yeah, I think
What's
so.
he doing getting himself sent off for taking his shirt? I mean, it was a last minute winner, to be fair,
Yeah, but
in this
they need to
game.
scrap
But
that rule.
yeah, look, they do. But while it's still the rule, the players need to understand. You can't do that when
No,
you're already on a yellow card.
I reckon just keep that rule for like non-league football because like these professionals, they all have like six packs and everything like that. They look like amateur bodybuilders. Whereas like non-league, they got your beer guts and stuff. Ban them from taking their shirts off. But in the professional game, just get rid of the rule. Like
No, I agree.
it's so
I agree.
stupid. And most players they have like we're playing in winter now. They generally have like an undershirt on or whatever, like one of those
He
skins.
did, but he took them both off.
Well, Haaland got a yellow card as well for taking his shirt off after the pen, and he had an undershirt off that he didn't take off. But still, like stupid. Did you see? Just while we're quickly on that topic of yellows for shirts off, I think was it in the Spanish? Was it in La Liga? I think a player lifted his shirt like that to reveal. I think it had something about an ex-teammate.
I did hear about that.
Yeah,
I don't know if I saw it,
death.
but
Yeah, well, it was regarding a death or something of a young player or someone young. And so he didn't even take his shirt off. Like he just like lifted that to show the message, and he got his second yellow for that, and he got sent off. Like, man, like, just they need to scrap that. And like, yeah, that's just stupid.
Yeah, no, I agree, but it was a great goal, a great winner, which keeps them in touch with Napoli.
Great celebration.
That was hugely important for them because I guess we won't go into the Napoli Eintracht one in depth, but Napoli on the weekend in a huge game, probably the biggest game of the weekend, beat Atalanta away 2-1 and had to come from behind in the game after Lookman put Atalanta 1-0 up from the spot. I think it was a game where Napoli showed.
Hey, are we doing Champions League or are we doing around Europe?
No, but because we're not gonna talk about the Napoli Eintracht, I'll talk about this because it's directly related to Milan's winner in terms of them keeping pace with Napoli. But yeah, that was hugely important, especially after Napoli knock off second place Atalanta, who fall, I don't know, to fourth or fifth now in Serie A because that's the nature of Serie A. But Napoli are just running away with it at the moment, and Milan had to score that late winner, and they did, to their credit. So, but in terms of Milan-Tottenham, this will be an interesting match because Tottenham don't really possess the ball in ways that can move Milan out of shape that we've seen in recent Champions League seasons because Milan like to favour that man-to-man sort of system. And particularly, it'll be an interesting matchup for whoever the unlucky soul who is named as Tottenham's right wing back for this tie will be, because they will be doubled up by Rafael Leao and Theo Hernandez, hopefully without injuries. And I expect Milan to get a lot of joy out of those areas if Tottenham don't game plan to at least go 2v2. They might even have to go 3v2 in those areas because those two players are so dangerous, and that's where all of Milan's threat comes from, is down that left-hand side. So that's got to be a really good tie. A bit of a clash of styles again, I guess, because not many teams play the style of football that Tottenham play nowadays. But yeah, definitely that's the third most intriguing tie for me going into this round of 16.
Who would you favour in that tie? Like if it was played tomorrow, like who would? I know it's played obviously in 3 months' time in
It's
February.
it's two teams. It's two teams with not very good Champions League pedigree. In
Not
terms of
recent.
Tottenham's manager not having a good Champions League pedigree, I guess that's the main thing I'm saying. I know Tottenham made the 19 final. Um, but yeah, in terms of the manager not having great pedigree, Conte's never been great in this competition. And Milan in recent seasons, I know it's only last season and this season, but they made a little bit of hard work getting out of the group this season. Last season, obviously, they got a group of death, but they couldn't get out of it. And I think, finished dead last in that group. So, yeah, these teams at this stage of the competition, while I think they're both good teams, they don't fill me with confidence in this competition, but I'd have to favour Milan. Just honestly, mainly because I just love Theo Hernandez so much. But if Harry Kane and Son can play well, then I give Tottenham every shout. It's almost as close to a 50-50 as you can get.
Yeah, I think just the way that AC Milan are playing, I think I'd put them ahead. Just because they seem like they're a little bit more settled in what they want to do, and the style of football that they want to play is actually proactive. So they want to play and they want to score, create chances and score. Whereas Tottenham, yeah, they take this more defensive approach. But since it's knockout football, maybe that actually favours them over two legs of football. Whereas like over a 38 game season, you get found out. So maybe that style does actually prevail against. Would you say that this Milan team is a little bit less experienced?
Yeah, naive, a little bit.
Yeah,
naive
because
for
they're
sure.
a little bit younger, aren't they?
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I think both these teams sort of have problems in defence as well. So that could, even though Tottenham like to favour a defensive approach, their defenders are very
Yeah,
good.
they're shit.
So we could have goals in this for sure as well.
Yeah. It's good.
I don't know. The more I think about it, though, that Harry Kane matchup against whoever the Milan defenders will be a nasty one for Milan. As much as that left-hand side will be a good one for them, I believe Harry Kane against either Kalulu, Tomori, or Gabbia will be a nasty sort of, unless they buy someone in January to fill that gap.
Yeah, but I think Milan has a better midfield than, like you said, that left side of Milan is gonna cause, if they're both fit, they're gonna cause absolute havoc.
I don't know. I don't know about better midfield because I think Tonali and Bentancur are the two standouts in either midfield, and they'll cancel each other out. They're actually very similar games, I think. And then the rest leaves a little bit to be desired in terms of Benacer maybe playing next to him, maybe Vega for AC Milan. Is it De Ketelaere as the attacking midfielder? Is it Brahim Diaz, who blows hot and cold? But when he blows hot, he's very good. And then Tottenham, we've already talked about. So, yeah, it's a clash of two really good midfielders, but the midfields themselves, they're a bit dodgy, the rest.
I imagine, though, that Perisic plays on the right-hand side for Tottenham. Because I think Conte really trusts him.
Yeah, and helps out with that defense. Probably a 5-4-1 or something without the ball, and really helps out with that defensive work.
Yeah,
you'd have to think.
Just depends who, I guess, plays right back for them. If they play with four at the back, it's going to be interesting who's actually there to help him out. But I imagine Perisic starts on the right hand side for Tottenham. Moving on to the last interesting game. I will comment. Tottenham Chelsea would have been interesting maybe 4 years ago.
Yeah.
I agree. But Liverpool, Real Madrid. There's some like okay games, like maybe like tier 2 games, like Dortmund, Chelsea, and Inter Porto. Those could be.
Yeah, and just quickly before we go to Liverpool, Real Madrid, because I forgot this in the Serie A roundup where I digressed, but. Inter suffered a really bad loss to Juve in Serie A, which, if you had to get me to write my headline going into the weekend, it probably would have been like, "Here comes Inter." because I would have expected them to go away and win that game. And then I think they would have been third, maybe second on points. And they've been in really good form. They've won a lot of games, but I think that's their fifth loss in Serie A this season. And Juve have remarkably gone above Inter in the table. For all their problems and for all the crap that we've seen from Juve this season, they win this game 2-0. I thought Inter dominated the first half, to be fair, but Juve still managed to eke out a win. And like I've been saying, maybe those shackles have been released from them, because now I think Inter, if Juve aren't top four, they're right on the heels of top four, which is incredible. And if Inter weren't already out of the title race, especially with Napoli keeping this pace, they might be right now. So I guess the headline is "Here comes Juve," apparently. So, but yeah, you got to comment on a game of that size, and I just forgot to. But yeah, before we move on to that, probably it's not the most intriguing clash, is it? Because Bayern PSG are probably the most intriguing, but Liverpool Real Madrid's right there.
I think if you guys were flying, it would be more intriguing. Like it was,
but we might be by that time.
Maybe, yeah, because it was intriguing as a final last year. But this year, it just seems Real Madrid is like in cruise control at the moment. They're just like, going in gear two.
They did lose the Madrid derby to Rayo Vallecano, their first loss in La Liga on the Monday night fixture.
Is that another undefeated team?
Well, they already lost in the Champions League too.
Yeah, but in the league though.
But in the league, yeah, they've lost. So I think it's only Napoli now who remain.
Yeah.
Yeah. So they lost their unbeaten league record, and no Benzema. Vinny's gone off a little bit off the boil in recent weeks. But this is what I keep saying. Like, how much stock can we take on what we're seeing now, considering these ties will be played in February? We really need to revisit where the teams are at going into the ties. But as it stands right now, Real Madrid have gone maybe a little bit. They've lost their sheen of invincibility somewhat, albeit Benzema hasn't been playing regularly. And obviously Liverpool are expected to be better on the other side of the season when they get, hopefully, players back and maybe get this whole month and a half to work on a few things with players who are going to the World Cup as well. So we could be in a completely different place when we play this tie in February.
Yeah, like there could be obviously injuries on the way, drop in form or an uptick in form. So what we say now,
and it must be mentioned that Real Madrid have relinquished top spot in La Liga as well with that loss, and Barcelona are now top.
Yeah, but is it only by a point? Is it?
Because
Barca lost to Real.
It's within a game.
Yeah. It's definitely an interesting tie. Like, obviously, those three ties are the, I guess, ties of the round. Do you want to touch on the others before we just quickly touch on the announced World Cup squads? Because I think a couple of the squads got announced.
I think. Do you want to leave the squads for when we have more squads announced, and then we can really do a deeper dive? Maybe when club football wraps up after the weekend. I know a few leagues are wrapping up midweek, actually. So a few leagues are having their last fixtures right now. But in terms of other ties, I think you gave enough credence to the other ties. There's a few like interesting names against each other, like Dortmund and Chelsea. And I guess the other thing we got to mention is we got a potential. So if we go through all these ties and we're giving we'll finish on this. We'll give predictions for what we think right now in all of these ties, and we'll look at who we think the last 8 will be, and then we'll see how strong we expect the last 8 to be. You happy with that?
Yeah, we'll just give a quick prediction on that.
In the PSG Bayern game, we've both got Bayern.
Yep.
Milan Tottenham, we both just edge Milan.
Yep.
So they're two pretty good teams already to have. Benfica, we both have over Bruges.
Mm-hmm.
Very good team to have in the last 8 again. Chelsea.
Oh, that's a tough one. That's a tough one.
That's a toss-up, isn't it?
It depends if Chelsea, like, if Kante is back, if Reece James is back, if Chilwell is back, like, if all these players are back, then yeah, I'd say Chelsea.
I'll go Chelsea as well, because I think I don't know exactly all their injuries, but I think probably 2 of those 3 should be back by then, you'd think.
Well,
So we'll go
Chilwell
Chelsea.
is a hamstring. That's 8 weeks usually.
Yeah. So he's definitely out of the World Cup, as we know, but
yeah.
he should be back by then. Liverpool, Real Madrid. That one might be the hardest one to pick in terms of where these clubs will be at that time. But right now,
you're playing
you're
playing the first leg at Anfield by the looks of it.
At Anfield,
I think I'd just pip Real Madrid. Yeah, I think I'd just put Real Madrid ahead of, because I think the midfield's much better than yours. What yours is right now.
Oh, yeah.
like even though the age of I think Real Madrid's midfield is older than yours, but they play better.
Sure, many helps that age though. To be fair, he's only 22.
But bloody Modric is 37.
37. Yeah.
Kroos is 34, 35.
Yeah, I think Kroos might be 33 or 34. He's a little bit younger than I expected, but yeah. I think it's fair, especially at this moment, to go with Real Madrid over Liverpool.
Yeah.
Napoli we expect over Eintracht.
Yep.
City we expect over Leipzig.
Yep.
And Inter we expect over Porto. Porto, I think, are here by default, to be fair. That group was...
Yeah, they didn't have a great
I know we
group.
went on about the Tottenham group, but that
was also another... Yeah.
Yeah, it was a bad one.
I'd say Inter as well.
Yeah, even though Inter have been hot and cold. So we could be looking at a last 8 that has Bayern, Milan, Benfica, Chelsea, Real Madrid, Napoli, Man City, Inter. I think we're almost guaranteed good ties.
Yeah.
In all of those games.
With those ones.
Except for maybe if a really good team gets Chelsea. But like we said, Chelsea could look completely different with Reece James, Chilwell, and N'Golo Conte back in the team. So I don't know. That last 8, if we get that, obviously we might get a shock or two. But if we get that last 8, that might be one of the stronger last 8s we've had in recent seasons, to be fair.
What's the one, out of those last 8, what's the one matchup you want to see? And I think we're going to agree on this one.
Ooh, of the last 8. Give me yours.
No, but of the teams that we mentioned, there's 2 teams that you want to see go head-to-head against each other, like the way they're playing right now, at least. I think we can both agree.
The way they play.
We can both agree with who those 2 teams are. That would be, on paper, would be a very good matchup.
Well, there's a lot. For
entertainment.
Style
of play.
Are you going for Napoli City?
Yes. I reckon that would be fantastic to watch.
It would be, wouldn't it? It would be so good.
Like, at least
especially if Napoli's
on paper.
Still playing this way by then.
I reckon it would be a really, really good game to watch. Just because I don't think Napoli would take a defensive approach against City. I think they'd actually take it to them.
Yeah.
But I'm just trying to think, is there any other ties that would be as fun? I think that would be the most fun out of all of them.
No, I would disagree just a little bit, and I would say Napoli, Real Madrid would be the most fun.
Yeah.
Because I think Real Madrid are way more open, so I think we'd get just end-to-end great players on each team, just a fantastic tie between those 2.
I think that would be interesting.
I'm hoping Real Madrid don't get through. So maybe we get Napoli. I don't think we can in the quarters. Does it? You have to wait till the semis.
No, I think you can.
Oh, you can in the quarters?
Yeah, I think you can.
So that could be fun in its own right as well.
Yeah.
But I reckon with that final 8, you can't really go wrong if we do get that.
But like, even if, for instance, Porto go through over Inter, or Dortmund go through over Chelsea.
That's not bad because you get
Tottenham over Milan.
Yeah, that's not bad either.
I don't think it's only really if Bruges beat Benfica.
Yeah, I know.
Or Frankfurt beat Napoli, or Leipzig beat Man City. That you're going to be like, there's at least like 1 or 2 duds in here. But if it
depends how they beat them as well.
Even so,
I don't know if Leipzig can defend against City. So if they're going to beat City, it's going to be because Christopher and Kuku and the attacking players like Szoboszlai and stuff are out of this world, which is good in its own right. But yeah, I don't think they can shut up shop and beat City.
Yeah. But yeah, I think that'd be pretty. Yeah, in the round of 16. Unfortunately, I think if there were the ties that we predicted, because we predicted there would be Bayern AC is a very good tie. Chelsea Inter is a good tie. Liverpool, Real Madrid, and Tottenham. I think we predicted slightly better ties because even though we're basically getting two mega ties in Liverpool, Real Madrid, and PSG Bayern, but in our predictions we sort of sacrificed the mega ties for like a great tie, like more great ties instead of like one or two mega ties.
Yeah, I think we wanted even stronger quarterfinals at the end. But as far as luck of the draw, I think we got lucky in that we should get pretty good quarterfinals.
We should, hopefully.
But we'll see how it pans out. We'll see where we're at in February because that's when this will matter, and we'll see what injuries are, form, players coming back from the World Cup. All of these factors are going to go into how we look going into these last 16. So I guess it's time to tuck these ties at the back of our mind and firstly take care of what's left of the domestic seasons before we go to the World Cup and then the World Cup. Which,
look, I just want to quickly touch on. Have you seen Brazil's World Cup squad? And then we'll end the pod. But that's I think them and Australia and I think Senegal are the only ones that are announced so far. But do you think Gabriel from Arsenal should have been in there? Because he's the only one that missed out of the Arsenal boys. But like, if I read out the defenders, like as the central defenders are Militao, Marquinhos, and Thiago Silva. I think Bremer is. And
Bremer's
is he a centre back
defender? Yeah.
I've never heard. Who does
that's
he play
the only
for?
question. It's Juve. It's between him and it's between Gabriel and Bremer for that last spot. I think. I don't think anyone else could be dropped. The problem is Alexandro hasn't been very good, but he's a left back, so they needed to take him.
Tellers is left back, is he? As well?
Who?
Alex Tellers.
Tellers, left back, yeah.
So, and then Danilo and Dani Alves are two right backs.
Yeah, and Danilo can play centre back as well. So I was surprised to see Dani Alves because I haven't seen him in so many years, but maybe that's a squad one. Look, on form, I think Gabriel maybe should be in there over Bremer. But Bremer, even though Juve have been poor, he's probably been their best centre back. So, look, I'm not up in arms about it, but from what I've seen, maybe Gabriel just did enough to shade that. Last position.
You know what I think sort of hurt his chances. I think the mistakes in the last 3 or 4 weeks. Who was it against? Like the one against Liverpool. There was the Tottenham one as well, a week or two before that. I think there was one.
The Fulham one earlier in the season.
Yeah, but I think, but because that was so early in the season, you sort of write that one. But the ones in recent weeks, was there one more against? Was there one? Was the one? No, the one against Southampton definitely wasn't him. I don't think
he got that red card against Leeds, but obviously they went to
Leeds as well. Yeah. So I think those moments, especially in the last 3 or 4 weeks, is what Tite has been looking at. He's like, I'm not sure I can really risk having someone with that in his game.
He is still quite young though. To be fair. I know I've been
but it's unfortunate not to see him there because I think based on the season,
two boys.
Yeah, but based on the season as a whole, I think he should have been there because he's been our main centre back and 11 goals conceded so far. But the other ones, Bruno Guimaraes, Casemiro, Everton Ribeiro, I think he plays in Brazil, right?
Yeah, I think it's Flamengo or something.
Yeah, Fabinho, Fred, Lucas Piquet, Fred. He made it. Fred made it.
Fred or Paquetá or even
Paquetá made it as well.
I haven't seen much of. The big gripe I had was no Joelinton.
Yeah,
I'm just come on, let's take Joelinton.
I don't know how he didn't make the squad.
Yeah, I just think he would have been a really good option as well. He's a different profile of midfielder to anything you've got.
And it's 26 now as well. It's not 23.
Yeah, exactly.
So, and then up
But
front,
I think he's flooded. Yeah, he's flooded it with forward players.
yeah. Oh, look, how many up front? Like Anthony, Jesus, Martinelli, Neymar, Pedro. Who does he play for?
I think Flamengo as well,
Yeah,
maybe. Or one of the
Rafinha.
Brazilian teams.
Yeah, Rafinha, Richarlison. But Richarlison, is he? He's still injured, or is he
must
coming
be.
back?
Yeah, he must be coming back because otherwise, I don't think
Yeah,
you'd pick him.
Rodrigo and Vinicius Junior. Yeah,
Yeah,
the Joe Ellington one is a shame that he's not going because he's last season and then this season he's been extremely good.
and quite surprised that Firmino, given his form, wasn't able to get into the squad because his form this season has actually been pretty good compared to probably the last 2 seasons.
Yeah, but who do you drop out of that? Maybe Richarlison?
Yeah, no, exactly. It's I guess if Richarlison's got to be fit, you still take him over Firmino. So, but that's a big if because he's not going to play any club football before he goes. So has to play some World Cup matches, and there's no pre-tournament matches for these nations. So
Yeah. I think some teams are still. I think Croatia is going to have one friendly before the World Cup.
Okay.
But some teams aren't having. Like I don't think England are having any more games before the World Cup. I don't know about Brazil whether they're going to have any, but I'm pretty sure Croatia is going to have a friendly in Qatar or in the United Arab Emirates. So
yeah.
Some teams might opt to have a game to see how the conditions are playing over there. But yeah, like overall, yeah, the two omissions of Gabriel and Joe Ellington are a little bit sad to see.
Yeah. Well, for you, obviously, Gabriel, but Joelinton for me, for sure.
Well, for me as well, Joe Ellington, because he's been very good.
Yeah.
And I think we mentioned on the previous part of the one before that that Guimaraes and Joe Ellington should get into the squad. Like we were expecting them both to get in.
Yeah, I don't want to see any Fred. That's all.
Yeah, that's a weird one, especially when you've already got Fabinho and Casemiro in there, and Guimaraes and Paqueta, who all like they're all similar type of players.
Well, definitely, Fred and Paqueta, and even Guimaraes to an extent.
Yeah,
but Guimaraes is a different level to those two.
Yeah. Whereas Joe Ellington would have offered, like you said, something a little bit different.
Yeah.
But
we are, I think, 11 days away from the World Cup beginning, which is just crazy.
I think the rest of the squads get announced either this week. Australia's got announced as well, but I don't know half of these guys.
Yeah.
But yeah, like I think the squads are getting announced though either over the rest of this week, and also at the start of next week, if I'm not mistaken. So. Yeah.
Bring it on.
Yeah, let's see who's going to be picked. But Caleb, anything else to add before we sign off?
All good.
Oh, good.
If you want to watch something crazy, watch the Seville derby, El Gran derby with Sevilla and Betis. The referee was absolutely on one. I think three decisions went to VAR for red cards, and all of them came back as he should be given a red card. So, and people are losing their minds. It was just a crazy game. Absolutely crazy scenes at the at Betis. So.
I might chuck that one on then.
Yeah, just put the highlights on, and you'll see just absolute madness.
Yeah, but
the game itself wasn't all that, but the red cards were just like, what is going on here?
I'll definitely have a look at that one. But Caleb, I got an early start tomorrow because chicken breast is on special, $8 a kilo, and that's extremely cheap in today's market or conditions. So I need to be in the shops early. I'm going to buy like 2 boxes, so like around, I think each box is 8 kilos, so 16 all up. I'm going to try 2 boxes.
Oh my god!
I generally go for 1 box, and like considering I need to walk to the shops, it gets a little bit heavy on the arms. Otherwise, if I had a car, I'd buy like 3 or 4 boxes. Anyway, Caleb, it's been a pleasure, and for everyone that's tuned in for these 2 hours and 13 minutes, thanks for coming, and bye for now.